All right, we are back here talking New York Giants football on the podcast as they get ready to head down to Dallas for Thanksgiving to take on the Cowboys. Join me today, a good friend of the podcast, one of the co-hosts of the Giant Insider and Newspaper podcast, Jerry Foley's here. Jerry, how are you?
Been better, but how are you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. I got to say, if I not plan to be talking to you after a loss here, but I mean, when we talked in the summer, I don't think any one of us would have seen 7-3 coming.
No, that's the thing. Everybody keeps saying, if you told us in the summer, you told us in training camp, and even at the beginning of the season that we'd be 7-3, we'd all sign up for it. But, expectations change as you go along, and we had a very good shot at being 8-2 going into Dallas. But we're 7-3, and that's kind of where we are right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely here. And I got to say, I last week was all over the Giants. I felt like, oh, this is a good spot for them. I don't know why they're not getting respected here. Like, I feel like Detroit's going to come in like high on themselves and lose this game. Then everything kind of went wrong on Sunday. What really was the big issue for the Giants here against the Lions?
A lot of people are saying they weren't up for the game. I don't think that's the case. I just think look, sooner or later, this roster catches up with itself, right? It's not that talented. And this was a case where there's guys injured. And now we have more guys injured, and Detroit just punched them in the mouth. Like it's very simple. They lost the battle in the trenches, right? They went with, they started Shane Lemieux at left guard, and he got beat up very quickly yesterday. Like PFF gave him a score of 0.0 on 36 snaps. Like it was just that kind of a day, right? Like they go up They go up 6-3, miss the extra point. And then when Jones throws the interception, you could just feel like, it's not going to go our way today. It had that feel from the start, and it carried through the rest of the day. Like the Giants can't turn the ball over; they're not talented enough. And when you turn it over 3 times to get no turnovers, that's a recipe for disaster. So I think as simply as they just beat us. The Detroit Lions punched the Giants in the mouth, and they couldn't recover. They don't have the talent offensively, to come back from that kind of a deficit. So that was it.
Yeah, you mentioned the injuries. He had to pick up 2 more big ones this one. We lose Wan'Dale Robinson for the season. Obviously, he's having his best game of the year. He has the 9 catch for 100 yards before he blows his ACL. And then Adoree Jackson gets hurt on the punt return, which I don't know why he was out there to begin with. Now he's out 4 to 6 weeks. Those 2 feel like killers.
Yeah, the Wan'Dale one hurts a lot because he finally got going, right? My partner, Chris, who's the beat writer, kept saying in training camp, wait till you see this kid. He's really electric. And we didn't see it much because he had a lot of nagging injuries, but we saw it yesterday. It's kind of coming, he kind of came into his own. The offense, the game looked like it slowed down for him finally. He was open, catching everything thrown his way. We saw everything that people were talking about early on what this kid can do, and he looked healthy. And then, of course, he tears his ACL after catching 100 yards, and you're like, oh, my God. Like, look, he was our 1 or our 1A receiver with Darius Slayton, but now the drop-off is huge. I mean, as for Jackson, look, we were just talking about this. I'm not going to kill Dable for putting him back at punt returning, but that's the risk you run when you put anyone back there, right? He was a number 1 corner. We really couldn't afford to lose him, and unfortunately now he's out 4 to 6 weeks, which could turn into the rest of the season. Who knows? But it just stinks, man. It's a shame because now we don't know about Fabian Moreau. I mean, the starting corners against the Dallas Cowboys Thursday might be Regarius Williams and Cordell Flott, maybe with Nick McLeod. I mean, it is just, and Darnay Holmes will help too. But it's insane how far down the roster this team is right now. So, hey, look, losing those 2 guys is tough. And then Feliciano got hurt. I mean, the injury list for the Giants is absolutely absurd right now.
It is. I do feel like it makes the job even hard for Brian Dable, who we talked in the summer. I remember we said that, hey, if Dable is winning with this roster, it shows you very fortunate at the coach spot because he's done a good job getting the most out of a very, very talent-deficient roster here. And I got to give him credit for the job he's done here. I feel like he has to work even harder now to try and keep them in this playoff race with all the injuries they have.
Yeah, that's going to be the trick, right? Because now you're stepping up in weight class. Like you're playing the Eagles twice, you play Dallas, you play the Vikings. You play Washington twice now, who all of a sudden is hot and looks good and is a totally different team with Taylor Heineke than Carson Wentz. And then you have the Colts who, despite having a coach with 0 experience, are playing well. So, the Giants are going to have to win probably 3 games over their final, 7, to make the playoffs. They're probably going to have to go 10-7. And those games with Washington are going to be absolutely critical now. I don't think you can split those. I think you have to win both. and probably beat the Colts to get in. If you beat the Eagles, if you beat the Cowboys or the Vikings, I'm looking at that as a bonus. But you know, you just feel for Dable because he's done such a ridiculously good job with this roster, and to have more and more injuries, like, man, give this guy a chance. Like I don't want to get into next year yet, but I can't wait to see what he can do with some more talent, with a number one receiver or two, right, from free agency or the draft. I mean, what he's doing with them now is incredible, man.
Yeah, that's for sure here. I mean, the job he's done with Daniel Jones also been very good, too. I mean, obviously, he's done a lot with Jones. Obviously, Jones played while he's one of his worst games of the year yesterday, but he's done a good job cutting on the turnovers, designing runs for him to take advantage of his skill sets. I feel like Daniel Jones has at least made it more of a conversation, because I think beginning of the year we said, oh, he's here for a year and he's gone. But I feel like now the conversation has to be had. Like, do they keep him around for a little longer? Because obviously not going to be in position anymore to go draft somebody.
Yeah, I think it's 60-40 that he stays now. I think he's actually endeared himself to everybody. Like the organization always loved him, but I think he's endeared himself more to the coaching staff and to the fans. I think the fans look at him like, look, we can win with him. Just give him somebody to throw to. I mean, the guys he's throwing to right now, like, I mean, Richie James is now back in, like, being a top 3 receiver for the Giants. Like, some of these guys wouldn't even make the rosters of other teams. So I think if you give Jones some talent, protect him a little better, you're going to have to help that interior of the offensive line next year. I do think Evan Neal will be fine. You just have to give him some time. But I think if you maybe bring in a center, bring in another more guard competition, and then give him a receiver, or really, you really need 2 more receivers probably. I think you can win with Jones, and I think he's endeared himself to everybody. And I don't think all of a sudden, man, I don't think quarterback is the number one need on this team anymore. You're watching this team play every week like we all do. It's receiver, it's inside linebacker, it's probably the second corner position, and it's the interior of that line that you really have to upgrade. Because if you keep Jones in there and add around him, I think you can win with him. He's proven you can win with him.
Yeah, that's true. And ironically, they might even be able to tag him because Saquon Barkley is having such a big comeback year, and he's a free agent too, and they can't afford to let him go because what Saquon has done is basically the entire Giant offense.
Yeah, and it's funny because a game like yesterday, a buddy of mine said to me, like, you wonder if a game like yesterday helps or hurts Saquon. And I said, I think it helps him because it shows you what they have when he can't get going. They have nothing, right? Offensively, he's 15 for 22. You're getting your doors blown off. That's what happened yesterday. So if Barkley is the entire offense, if he can't get going, they have nothing. So I almost think a game like yesterday, in a weird way, kind of ups his value to the Giants. And it's clear they like him a lot. I've said before, I'd rather keep him. It's not like you're spending another draft pick on him at number 2 overall. You have him already. So if you have him already, figure it out and keep him, and continue to build around him and Jones and make this offense, dynamic and the vision that Dable and Kafka probably have for it.
Yeah, that's for sure here. I do think also, I've also been impressed by the coaching job Wink Martindale's done on the defense, and they've also been missing a lot of pieces at times too. Yesterday's hurt because obviously Detroit gashed them on the ground. It's sort of been the one weak spot of the Giants at this season here. So what do you think about what they got to do defensively here to sort of keep things in order for try and make a playoff push?
They're so weak at the inside linebacker position right now. That's where they are getting absolutely destroyed. The edges are okay. Thibodeau doesn't hold the edge like Jihad Ward does, actually. And I would love to see Ojulari come back and contribute, but it's that inside linebacker to fill in the gaps, like Jalen Smith and now, what's his name? The rookie played more yesterday. The kid from Indiana, I can't even think of his name. McFadden. He played a ton of snaps yesterday. Tate Crowder is kind of an afterthought on the inside now, so they have to upgrade there. I think Martindale's done a very good job. They're not getting to the quarterback like I thought they would, though, and that's just a talent issue. Like, they're not, even when Martindale sends the house, which he loves to do, they're not getting there. They're not getting nearly the sacks I thought they would. And I know he can't send the house when it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1. He wants to do that when it's 3rd and 8 and really come after you. So their inability to stop the run has been their Achilles heel on defense. I think Wink Martindale's done a very good job. I can't wait to see this coaching staff back next year with more talent. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think for the first time in a long time, I should say, we're not getting out coached, and we actually have a better coaching staff than our opponents most weeks. So I would love to see some talent around this current team, to where these coaches can really take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's for sure. You mentioned the impact of his coaching staff. I mean, look at the way the Giants have won these games. I mean, all 7 of their wins this year came by within 8 points or less. So, like, that's a lot of signs of great coaching and getting a job done. On the flip side, you can also look at it and say, hey, like, a couple of bounces of the ball going your way. If they go the other way, maybe you lose some of these games here. And the bottom sort of fell out yesterday against Detroit. Do you sort of think that maybe that game could be a harbinger of things to come here for what could happen to the Giants down the stretch?
If they were playing mediocre teams, I would say no, but they're playing the better teams in the NFL, happen to be in their division. And I think it could be. I think that yesterday was like kind of a foreshadowing of what may come. And it's like, all right, well, these teams have figured out, and the Texans too, stop Saquon. Well, I mean, they didn't stop Saquon, but they're I should say Seattle, right? Seattle came in and said, we're going to stop the run, and you're going to have to beat us other ways. And then the Giants, of course, turned the ball over twice in that game too. But Seattle, Houston couldn't do it. And Detroit, it's stop Saquon, and the Giants have no answer for it other than, zone reads and Daniel's legs, which you're going to have to see a lot of down the stretch. So unfortunately, because of the lack of talent on this team, the Giants are going to struggle the rest of the 7 games. It's just, I don't see how they don't. But look at the Minnesota Vikings, right? They're 8-2. They have net less points than their opponents. I think they're two under, right? So I just think the league, and you look at the Vikings and you think, wow, that team's immensely more talented than the Giants. But that's just kind of the league right now. It's a very mediocre league for the most part, except for our division. It seems like the elite teams like the Eagles and Cowboys are just waiting for us. So unfortunately, I think yesterday was a foreshadowing of things. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it was. Get ready, Giants fans, because this whole dream of being 8-2 and waltzing for the rest of the season and winning half your games and getting into the playoffs is a distant memory now. You're 7-3, and it's going to be a struggle to get to the playoffs now.
Yeah, you mentioned that schedule. I mean, we're looking at it right now. They also got a bit. Think about all the division games except for the first Dallas game got backloaded here at the back end of the schedule. I mean, you mentioned it at Dallas, Commanders home, Eagles home, at the Commanders, at the Vikings, Colts, and then at the Eagles again. That's really, really rough here. I mean, you said it best. I mean, especially the Commanders games. I mean, about like 3-4 weeks ago, I said, oh, they can win those games and they'll be able to get in. Like now, neither one of them's giving.
Yeah, and look, you can still get in the playoffs going 2-4 in your division if you take care of business against the Colts. Most likely, the way it's shaking out, it's not a guarantee, but it's most likely going to be the case. So you want to beat Washington twice because you don't want it to come down to rooting against them and hoping that other teams take care of business. You want to get them twice so that if you end up with the same record, you're in. And I really believe, even if they don't beat Washington twice, I really believe it's going to come down to January 1st against the Colts at home to get into the playoffs. Like look, weird things happen in the NFL. Like maybe they sneak one against Dallas Thursday. Who the hell knows? Maybe Dallas partied too much and they're taking the Giants lightly. Maybe they sneak one in Minnesota on Christmas Eve, or maybe they sneak one at home against the Eagles, right? It's all possible. They're not going to win all 3 of those games, but maybe they sneak one of those games, beat Washington once, and then they got to beat the Colts. I think that's how it's just going to come down to that Colts game. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that too. I mean, you look at the Commanders, especially, like they're probably the biggest threat who's currently outside the field to take that Giants spot. It's sort of like what happened with the Jets right now on the other side of town. Like the reason they're out, New England's in because New England beat them twice. You don't want to have that happen to the Giants.
Right. What's amazing is if the 49ers lose tonight, if the playoffs started today, every NFC East team is in. So there could be that scenario. I don't think there will be because I think, Washington has to play the Giants twice yet. I think they got to play Dallas one more time. So there's going to be some jockeying a position that way. But look, I mean, the Giants have their work cut out for themselves. They are in the toughest division in football at a time when somehow they've managed to go 7-3 through their first 10. But it's all there in front of them. They can do it. It's just, you just have to, you got to start getting some guys back. You got to get Evan Neal back. You got to get Bellinger back. You got to get, hopefully, Ojulari back. And I don't even know what he's going to bring to the table when he comes back. He hasn't played much this year. But Evan Neal's got to come back and Bellinger for you to really have a chance to do anything offensively.
Yeah, that's sure here. And brutal time with the Giants here to get this game on the short week here. That's probably going to keep some of these guys who got hurt on Sunday out potentially against the Cowboys here. And I think it's also quite ironic that This is the year that I think the NFL started to just bury the Giants on Thanksgiving, said they're not going to be good. Now it's probably one of the most important games of the season is on this game. In this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately right now it's kind of come back to that mindset. Like, all right, well, 4:30 is going to be our throwaway game because Dallas is going to absolutely trounce the Giants. I mean, if I'm the Giants this week, I'm not trying to simplify it too much, but run, zone read, run, zone, and that's it. It's just you got to run. You can't do anything. You can't. The pass block is going to be so difficult against this front seven. I mean, Barkley's going to have to explode for them to have a shot to win, or Daniel's going to have to use his legs. I mean, it's just the task is monumental, mainly because of all the injuries the Giants have gone through. I mean, if you read the list of Giants that have been injured from training camp to now, it is absolutely absurd. And guys that are out for the year that they were depending on, it's just, it is what it is. I mean, they got to go out there Thursday and do the best they can, but I don't think any Giant fan in America is thinking, oh yeah, we have a really good shot this week. It's just 4 days after getting beaten by the Lions and then losing two key players. It's almost like climbing Mount Everest. It's insane.
It's crazy too. You can't even really look back at week 3, the game they played. They lost by 7 at home, and say, "Oh, like we'll take something out of that game," because Dak Prescott's not in that game. It was Cooper Rush.
Yeah, and they were in that game like late too. And you looked at it, how the hell are the Giants even in this game? It's 13-6, and they Dallas has really outplayed them. But CeeDee Lamb dropped a couple passes in that one. I'll tell you what, man. I think the Giants have a better shot beating Dak than Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush just seemed so calm when the Giants blitzed him. He didn't care. I'm not saying that they have a better chance to beat them like this week. I'm just saying if everyone's at their strength, I'd almost rather go against Dak than Cooper Rush because Cooper Rush seemed completely unfazed by what Wink Martindale was doing. But I mean, this week I think they could start like Babe Laufenberg and still beat the Giants somehow just because of what the Giants, the Giants injury list is insane.
Yeah, I think it is, but I do think gut call here before we wrap up here. Does this team get the job done and get to the playoffs? Do you think that the injuries, there's too many of them right now?
You can't react after Sunday's loss. You probably can't react after what will very likely be a Thursday loss either. You got to take it for what it is, right? Say the Giants are 7-4. All right, you got 10 days to get ready for the Washington Commanders. It is going to be a must-win, absolute biggest game of the year. And they win that one, then they're 8-4. And then it's, all right, guys, you got to win 2 of your remaining games. You're probably going to have to beat the Commanders again. Maybe you can sneak one, like I said, against the Eagles somehow. Vikings. So do I think they will? I think somehow they will end up in the playoffs. It's just going to be typical Giants, as painful as humanly possible, coming down to that last game. I don't know if it's a 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock. I haven't looked at my tickets. If it's a 1 o'clock, it's going to come down. If it doesn't get flexed, it's going to come down to 4:30, 4:15 Eastern Standard Time on January 1st before the Giants get into the playoffs. So I think they'll get in, but it is going to be an excruciating next 7 weeks.
I think I agree with you. Just on the fact, I feel like this coaching staff is capable of finding a way to get these couple of wins they need. If it was some other stats they've had, I would say no chance. But I think what they have going on with this coaching group, I feel like they'll find a way to get the job done.
Yeah, I think our coaching is too good to blow a 7-3 record. And even if they did blow it, you could just fall back on them. They're just not talented, but I don't think they'll blow it. I think they're smart enough and a talented coaching staff enough to get in by the skin of their teeth, but they'll get in somehow. I just think they've already beaten the teams they've had to. Like Detroit's not going to come back and bite them. That loss is not going to come back. Detroit is not going to go rattle off wins here. They're going to finish the way they should. They're going to likely get smoked on Thanksgiving, and then it's like, okay, Detroit stinks. Even though they're probably a little more talented than the Giants as far as a personnel standpoint. But I just think that somehow, some way they'll get in. I really think it's going to come down to late in the game against the Colts getting in.
Yeah, I was like, one other note, I get your opinion on here about the Commanders games here. I think it's interesting. I look at Washington's schedule here. I did not realize their bye sandwiched between the two Giant games. So literally they go at the Giants on this week 13. They have a bye week 14, week 15 they have the Giants again. I've never seen anything like that.
No, and then the Giants have the Eagles in between, right? Like that's like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, it's gonna be something, man. That Washington game at home will be must win. If the Giants lose that game, and then this is assuming they lose against the Cowboys. The Giants lose the Cowboys and lose to Washington. then you say, you know what, this was a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. They absolutely will have to beat the Washington Commanders at home. And then if they do that, you're going to feel really good because they're going to be 8-4. They're going to severely hurt the Commanders. And then it's all right, just win 2 more games somehow. I don't know, man. I'm just not afraid of the Vikings. Like, I never was. And then what Dallas did to them, I'm just thinking like, geez, this team is totally, Kirk Cousins doesn't scare me. He's totally beatable. He turns into Kirk Cousins every year towards the end of the year, one way or another. I think that's a game they can sneak in. I don't know if they will, but if they beat the Commanders the first time and don't beat them the second time, I look for that 9th win to come against the Vikings on Christmas Eve. Call me crazy. Maybe they lose 40-3, but I can see them beating them. And then, look, in Philly, it could get ugly just because Philly's loaded. It could get loaded. I mean, Philly is loaded. I don't think they're a juggernaut. I think they can be beaten too. I mean, the Commanders showed it, and the Indianapolis almost beat them. But that's going to be a tough one in Philly. I think it'll be at home against the Colts where they lock it up.
Yeah, I think the Giant fans, they definitely love that Christmas prize of beating the Vikings on Christmas Eve. So, Jerry, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. Before I let you go, if you follow social, you keep up with what you guys are doing over at the Giant Insider.
Yeah, we still have a newspaper going. You can go to Magster to subscribe, Magzter, or go to www.thegiantinsider.com. And our podcast is on all the platforms, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. So we put out 2 during the week and then once a week in the off season. It's been a lot of fun with Chris.
Absolutely, Jerry. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.